Hello, this is an updated Templar healer video, which is generally your standard healer. They usually want to have at least one in group. You definitely don't need to have two at this point. You can always throw in a warden or a sorc, or even a DK if you have tanks that aren't DKs. So there's a lot you can do with group composition if you want to play around with stuff. But let's just go over the build for Templar. Her most recent patch here. So I usually keep her in Mending and IA. You can also do IA and Jorvolds, Mending and Jorvolds, Olorime and Jorvolds. I wouldn't necessarily pair Olorime with anything else besides Jorvolds, because you'll want to keep that buff as high as possible, because DPS are wiggly and they like to run out of everything. Okay, so generally I keep the weakening on the lightning staff bar and the and absorb mag on the front bar. I just need to make those updated with my crafter. I just haven't done that yet. It used to be that you put weakening on the front bar and crushing on the back, but now that most tanks run crusher on their lightning staff bar and proc it with blockade, it's not necessary. If you happen to be with a tank that doesn't do that, you might want to throw on, doesn't use lightning staff, you might want to throw in a crusher. So you don't necessarily have to gold out your weapons unless you really want to. It gives you just a tiny bit more on the effects. So the traits that you'll want to use for the staffs, you have a few choices. So infused back bar is really good for proccing the enchant. Like I said, I just need to update it, it makes the enchant come up more. And you can use decisive on the front bar if you want to generate ultimate. That'll keep your warhorn uptime higher, which is really nice. You can use powered on your resto if you feel you really need that extra healing, but I don't find it necessarily. And charged, I think, is pretty much obsolete at this point, because you're not as worried about off balance as you are about proccing the enchants. Okay, so I generally keep Earthcore on. Also want to hold on to Bogdan and Sentinel. I just have my sets floating around. So right now I just have my Earthcore on. I usually keep max mag enchants on everything, unless I need a little bit extra for different content, a little extra health or whatnot, or stam. You can play around with that. Okay, so I keep either Divines or Infused on the pieces. You can mix and match them. You can also do infused on big pieces, which are head, chest, and legs, and do tri-stat glyphs on there if you want your overall stats higher. I personally like to go to do less stam and more magicka, just because of my playstyle. I don't do a lot of sprinting or dodge rolling or things like that. I kind of just run out of stuff, and you don't need too much stam for that kind of stuff. Okay, depends on how you play. And you can improve your gear to gold, which is a little bit more helpful, just because it makes the effects a little bit more. Like this would be 7.5% for the divines. I just haven't done it on this. Like I said, I switch sets all around all the time, so I have 4 healers, and just takes a lot of gold mats to do that. So still working on that. But if you just have the one healer, it's much easier to keep everything updated. Okay, so I happen to have Jorvolds and IA on right now. I believe that's because I was front kiting Vass. This must have been what it was last. I do like to have mag recovery on my jewels. You can also do Swift if you're front kiting Vass, and or infused or other things. I just haven't messed with the traits on that as much. I just have a lot of characters that I use and use transmute stones on them. So if you just mean a healer, then you can work on using different traits and different enchants if you need them. I personally just like the mag recovery. Okay, so generally I use with her Witch Mothers. Right now I happen to have Bystat food on, because I was using that for front kite. If you need to have a little bit more stam for a little fight or something like that, you can throw on Tristat food. You can use the Crown Tri-Resto potions if you need, or the regular Tri-Stat potions if you need to regen your stam and your mag, or you can make your own that are just mag and stam recovery. You can use trash pots if it's not difficult content. You don't want to waste them, whatnot. But if you're doing harder content, I suggest using the spell power. Okay. So you usually want to use this one. I just stole them for my mag blade. Okay, so let's go over the character sheet real quick. Okay, so this is how I have her set up right now for front kiting Vass. If you're doing Vass hard mode, you'll want a bit more health, like close to 28k, and your max mag will go down to like 27. I like to have my mag recovery right around 2k. The reason is I use channeled focus, and that gives me a little bit more. You don't really want to go much under 2k. You can go up to like 2300. I wouldn't suggest going more over that. You just really don't need it, because you do need a heavy attack with your resto for the passives, and if you're doing IA, you want to heavy attack at least to the first tick so that it procs IA. You don't need to do a full heavy attack for that. I have a lot more into health right now just because of that. Otherwise, I drop it down to about 25, flip it over to Magicka, and you'd have closer to like 32, 33 max mag when you do that. I have the Atronach Mundus. You can also switch out for a ritual, or you can even do a spell power, which increases your heals, or even crit if you really want to. Okay, so as far as the skills go, this is my front bar. You can see right here, the resto. Okay, so you always want to keep on combat prayer, because even if your other healer is running it, it only hits 6 of your allies at once. It's a good heal and good resistance and damage and whatnot. Okay, so Harness Magicka is just what happened. I was using this as a front kite, but I generally use Ward Ally, which is in the Resto Staff. Honor the Dead, I use this over Breath of Life just because honestly I don't spot heal that much. It's not necessary for the way that I play, because I keep over my hots out, and the if you play with a DPS that know what they're doing, they don't generally stand in the major stupid, and the tanks can usually do that as well. So I use Honor the Dead just because it restores the cost, and I pretty much only use it as an oh crap heal for myself. I may use it once or twice a trial. I know that's not what people normally say, but I know that some do, and that's just because of my playstyle. If you happen to use it more, you can do Breath of Life Morph, which will heal a couple of targets as well. Okay, so for mutagen, I always keep this off because it has it's kind of like a nice security, so if they drop below 20% health, it pops them right back up a bit, so they won't die. So it's really nice to use in most situations. I use Illustrious Healing because frankly, you don't need the Magicka recover. The only difference with Healing Springs is it gives you some Magicka back on the first tick. So I don't find that necessary at all. If you're having problems with recovery and you have like over 2,000, then you're not doing enough light attacks in between your skills, or you're not heavy attacking enough. So you don't really need that. This gives you an extra second of heals, and this is one of the reasons why I don't need Breath of Life, because I keep that down. Okay, this is just what I was using for the front kiting, but you will generally switch it out but not use it with a reviving barrier. And the reason you'll want to do that is because of the region on that. Okay. So some people use barriers a lot. I have probably used it maybe 5 times in my life. I just don't think it's necessary for having that damage shield. And the extra heal, you just need to keep up your Warhorn, okay? Because there aren't many places you'll get major force from. So that's definitely why you want to do that. Okay. It also increases the stats, not the health, which is why you kind of want to have a Warden in the group now for that health buff. Okay, so this is my back bar. You want to keep down Ritual of Retribution. It might be a little silly because this does do a little bit of damage, but the Purify Synergy cleanses the effects, and it also cleanses effects from you immediately and heals you and nearby allies. So it's a nice little heal over time, or a hot that you want to keep out. They can activate the Purify synergy. That's really good in like VAS or VHOF, things like that. Okay, so you'll definitely always want to keep this down. Plus, it is a huge circle. If you can see how big this is, it covers a lot of area, whereas opposed to your healing springs, which is like this much. So it's nice to have that bit of extra for when you have some stray DPS. You'll always want to keep elemental drain on unless you're in like a low ad fight and you're the only one using it and you can keep it up all the time. Just suggest keeping it on both healers. Your blockade of storms is what you'll really use for proccing your enchant, and it's also helpful for the concussion or off balance, but that's not as necessary at this patch. Okay, energy orbs. I use this over shards. You can see that you can shoot out as many of these as you want. The cost is kind of high, but if your recovery is good and you're light attacking and heavy attacking, then that's not a big deal. I usually spam out like with light attacks in between like 5 or 6 of these at a time. That's about as many as I'll pop it. If you're throwing out more orbs and people are popping them, then just throw out less at a time and throw it down like every 10 seconds. Okay. So just kind of pay attention to what your group members are doing. It also heals, so it's nice to have that. I do usually keep channel focus on. It gives me major resolve and major ward, and it also increases, gives you some magic recovery. Okay, so some of the other skills that you can use are the shards. You would morph it to luminous shards. I just don't use it. If you can aim well with your orbs, you really don't need to. And if your tank is having trouble waiting that 2 or 3 seconds for the orb to get to them to sustain, then they probably have some issues of their own. So unless you have a really whiny tank, you don't generally need to use this. Some people use it to proc Olo. I personally use healing springs to proc Olo if I need to, or just alter. I don't usually run Olo on my Templar because if there's a warden in group, they should be running it. Okay, so this is the morph you would use if you were to use it. You definitely want to have all your passives in here. Solar Prison, this is what people call Nova. This is what you'll use if you need some major maim going out. Okay, so it reduces the damage done, which is a little bit different than like, let's say, like a ulti from a DK like the standard or the one from the Warden, the Ice Storm, because those do damage mitigation. This is a little bit different, but it has the same general use. Okay, so you'll also want to slot Power of the Light. You can switch it out for your Channel of Focus if you don't need it. You can switch it out for your Breath of Life if you don't need it. I know some people might shoot me for saying that, but you could also switch it out for Mutagen if you don't need it. Just whatever your flex spot is. You want to keep some of the other ones down for sure. Sometimes you can switch out Blockade if you're on more ranged fights. So this you would use if there's no Stamplar in the group. And the reason is because minor fracture and minor breach. You can also use poison to help with those similar type of things. As far as restoring light goes, I have Honor the Dead. You can use the healing ritual. I haven't used it so much on the server. I use it on EU on my Argonian Templar, and it seems to be a really nice like area heal, but it just has a smaller range. So this will kind of like hit anything in front of you and just do like 1 or 2 people, or Breath of Life will do a couple. This will do 1. And this will do as many allies are as close to you. It's a spot heal, kind of like Breath of Life. So that's an option you can use. You definitely want to keep all your passives up in there. So Staff Ice have all the passives in there. You can morph Force Shock to Crushing Shock if you really need that for an interrupt. Don't generally do that as a healer, but just in case. Okay, and you can morph Force Siphon into Quick Siphon. It removes the cast time, and it does lifesteal. I just don't happen to really like it. You can also do Siphon Spirit if you want Magic Steal, like if you need some more Magicka back, but I think that's kind of a waste of a spot. You can just do that with Mag Recovery. So Ward Allies, the shield that I usually keep on. So you keep that on your Resto Staff bar, your shields, so you can switch them out really fast. And that's just usually what I use to protect other players. Okay, so I keep the light armor passives in. You can also throw in the medium, some of the medium and heavy armor passives if you do 5-1-1. I just don't have more skill points to put in there at this moment. You do want to keep down, you can also switch out Sanguine Altar for either your shield or for the Honor of the Dead or one of your flex spots. For another synergy for Alkos, just make sure that your other healers and or tanks are using the other morph. You don't really need to have more than 2 in a group. Most groups don't even run it, but it's nice to have for more Alkos uptime. I happen to have Inner Fire on just from when I was taking last boss in BDSA. Bone Shield's another one that you can use for a shield, and that gives you another synergy. It's good in VCR. You can use it in some other content as well. You just have to make sure that your fellow group mates are good at popping the synergies, because it's kind of a waste if it isn't popped. So, and then you want to keep up those guys. Don't really need to worry too much about the passives there. I am a Breton because I like the max magicka, spell resistance, and reduce the magicka cost, which is very nice. Alchemy, you want to keep medicinal use up to 3. I just don't have it up there. You will use pots with a templar pretty often. Okay, so let's go over champion points. And this was just set up for the trial that I was in. Okay, so the green is usually just for how your play style is, okay? And the blue, you definitely want to have in Elfborn and Blessed, and then you can throw the other ones where you'd like them. Okay, so that's about it for that. Let me know if I missed anything or you have any questions. And